The meeting no one expected. The glass walls of the Galactic rescue station trembled under the weight of the storm outside. Lightning split the sky, flashing against the distant mountains of the planet Varela. Inside, the air was heavy with tension. Dozens of alien rescuers stood in a half-circle, their voices low, their movements careful. In the middle of the room, inside a secured habitat, were 3 small cubs, each no bigger than a human toddler, with silver fur that shimmered under the lights and wide golden eyes that darted nervously at every sound. They were the last of their kind. Orphaned after a pirate raid on a remote colony, these cubs were precious not only for their rarity, but because their species, the Virulon linari, was known to grow into powerful, fiercely intelligent predators. Even as younglings, they carried an instinctive distrust of anything that approached them, and that distrust was on full display now. Every time a rescuer stepped forward with food, the cubs hissed and scrambled to the far corner. When a medic tried to scan them with a harmless light, they pressed their small bodies into the wall, eyes wild with fear. It didn't matter if the being was large or small, furred or scaled, the reaction was the same. They feared everyone, except him. Liam Cole had not even meant to stop. The human engineer was just passing by, carrying a crate of power cells toward the maintenance bay. He wasn't part of the rescue team. He had no idea that in the next few seconds, every eye in the room would be on him. He slowed when he saw the crowd, curiosity pulling him toward the glass. He had never seen a Linari cub before. He expected them to shrink back like they had for everyone else. Instead, the opposite happened. The moment the cubs saw him, they froze, not with fear, but with something else. Their ears twitched forward, their golden eyes locked on his face. One of them tilted its head in a slow, almost curious motion, and then before anyone could react, the smallest cub padded forward, pressing its tiny paw against the glass. The room went silent. Liam blinked, looking around to see if anyone else noticed. Of course they had. A dozen alien rescuers were now staring, some with open mouths, others exchanging rapid whispers in their native tongues. A tall insectoid medic hissed softly, its antennae curling. That is not normal, it said in a voice like rustling leaves. They fear all who come near. They have chosen you. Liam gave a nervous laugh. Chosen me? I'm just an engineer. I don't even know what they eat. But the cub wasn't done. It pressed its paw harder against the glass, making a soft churring sound deep in its throat. The other 2 cubs, who had been cowering in the back only moments ago, slowly crept forward. Within seconds, all 3 were sitting right in front of Liam, staring up at him like they had known him all their lives. The silence in the room felt heavier now. Liam shifted uncomfortably under so many watching eyes. Hi? He said awkwardly to the cubs. He lifted a hand and placed it against the glass. To his shock, the smallest one pressed its paw to the exact same spot. A sound of disbelief rippled through the rescuers. This is impossible, whispered a blue-skinned scientist, scribbling furiously into a datapad. They have not displayed trust to any being. Not the handlers, not the medics, not even the caretakers who fed them. And yet, they seek you. Liam stepped back, feeling a strange mix of confusion and something warmer. It was hard to explain. He didn't know these creatures, but the way they looked at him, it felt personal, like there was some invisible thread between them. The lead rescuer, a stern-looking reptilian officer, stepped aside, head closer to him. Human, it said firmly. Remain still. Why? Liam asked, glancing at the cubs. The officer's eyes narrowed. Because they are bonding. Before Liam could ask what that meant, one of the cubs let out a high-pitched chirp, its tail twitching. Then, with sudden determination, it leapt onto the small shelf inside the habitat, pressed its nose to the hatch door, and began making a series of sharp clicks. The medic's antennae quivered. They are asking for him to enter. The room broke into low, urgent arguments. Some argued it was too dangerous. The cubs were still wild animals. Others said this could be an unprecedented breakthrough for their care. Through it all, the cubs didn't look away from Liam. Finally, the officer made a decision. Open the door. Liam hesitated as the hatch slid open with a soft hiss. "You're sure about this?" he asked. "No," the officer replied, "but they are." Liam stepped inside slowly, expecting at least one cub to retreat. None did. Instead, the smallest cub walked right up to him, sniffed his boots, and then leaned its head gently against his leg. The other two followed, pressing close to him in a tight little circle. And just like that, the cubs stopped trembling. From the observation deck above, a dozen cameras recorded the moment. They would play it over and over later, trying to understand why. But no amount of analysis could explain the truth that every being in that room now felt in their bones. For some reason no one could name, the alien cubs were terrified of everyone, except the human. Whispers in the halls. By the next morning, the story had already spread across the Galactic rescue station like fire in dry grass. From the docking bays to the research labs, whispers followed Liam wherever he walked. The cubs chose him. Humans have no history with Linari. What does it mean? Even the mess hall was quieter when he entered. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Eyes followed him. Some curious, some suspicious, a few downright hostile. Liam tried to ignore Envau's. He wasn't interested in becoming the center of some alien mystery. He had a maintenance schedule to keep, repairs piling up on the station's power grid. But it was hard to focus when every time he passed the habitat wing, 3 pairs of golden eyes appeared at the glass, tracking his movements. It wasn't just watching, it was waiting. When he finally stepped inside the observation room, the cubs reacted instantly, tails twitching, ears perked, chirps spilling out in rapid bursts. The alien caretakers glanced at each other, some shaking their heads. A blue-skinned scientist named Harrow approached Liam holding a datapad that was glowing with charts and strange symbols. "We ran scent analysis, voice recognition patterns, and thermal mapping," Harrow said. "They react to you in a way they do not react to any other being. It's almost as if..." Harrow hesitated, lowering his voice. "As if they remember you." Liam frowned. "That's impossible. I've never even been near their homeworld." "Perhaps not you," Harrow said, eyes narrowing, "but maybe your kind." Before Liam could ask what that meant, the heavy door at the far end hissed open. Commander Tavarin, a tall, armor-scaled reptilian, strode inside with an air of authority that instantly silenced the room. His yellow eyes locked on Liam. "You will not enter their habitat again," Tavarin said, his voice low but sharp. Liam folded his arms. "Why not? They're not afraid of me." "That is the problem," Tavarin replied. "Their kind survives by fear. Without it, they trust too easily. And that makes them weak." Liam glanced down at the cubs. They were pressing their paws against the glass again, clicking softly, the same sound they had made before he entered yesterday. He didn't know what it meant, but it felt like a call. "You can lock me out," Liam said quietly, "but you can't stop them from wanting me there." Ian's jaw tightened. "We'll see about that." He turned sharply and left, his tail lashing behind him. The tension in the room was thick enough to taste. Harrow stepped closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. "Be careful. The commander has influence with the council. If he thinks you're a threat to the cubs, he can have you removed from the station." Liam shook his head. "I'm not trying to be their whatever this is. I'm just..." A sudden alarm blared, cutting him off. Lights flashed red along the walls. The habitat's security screen filled with movement. The cubs were no longer in their corner. They were leaping, climbing, scratching at the hatch door, their movements frantic. "They're trying to escape!" one of the caretakers shouted. The hatch was locked, but the cubs were clever. One managed to trigger the emergency release on the food slot. In seconds, all 3 had squeezed through the opening, scattering into the corridor. "Seal the wing!" Tavarin's voice roared over the comm. "Do not let them..." But it was too late. The cubs ran straight through the hallway, ignoring every alien trying to block their path. They didn't stop until they skidded to a halt right in front of Liam. Panting, eyes wide, they pressed against his legs like frightened children. Everyone froze. Liam slowly crouched down, his voice soft. Hey, it's okay. The smallest cub made a low, almost mournful sound and buried its head against his chest. The other two huddled close, their fur brushing against his arms. Behind them, Taverin appeared, his scaled face dark with frustration. "Do you see now?" he said coldly. "They will not survive if they see you as their only safety." Liam didn't answer. He couldn't. The weight of the cubs against him, their trust, their need, it was more than he understood. But deep inside, something told him this was no accident. Somewhere in their instincts, in their very blood, they knew him. And that terrified him more than anything. Memories of fire. The rescue station never truly slept, but tonight it felt different. The hum of generators, the soft clink of distant tools, the faint thrum of ships in the docking bay, all of it seemed quieter, as if the entire place was holding its breath. Liam sat alone in the corner of the habitat observation room, the cubs curled together inside their glass enclosure. They had finally calmed after their frantic escape earlier, but their eyes followed him constantly, even in sleep. The door hissed open. An older alien entered, thin, bent-backed with pale green skin that seemed almost translucent under the lights. His eyes were clouded with age but sharp in their focus. He carried no datapad, no scanner, just a worn satchel slung across his shoulder. "You are the human," the elder said, his voice a low rasp. Liam nodded cautiously. "That's what they keep telling me." The elder stepped closer to the glass. The cubs stirred instantly, ears twitching. But instead of fear, there was curiosity. They made soft clicks, almost like a greeting. The elder's hand trembled slightly as he pressed it to the glass. "I have seen this before," he whispered. Liam frowned. "Seen what?" The elder turned his gaze on him. "The way they look at you. The way they follow you." He let out a slow breath. Centuries ago, during the Varellan Wars, there was a human soldier who saved an entire Linari den from the firestorms of Karath. The stories say he carried the young in his arms for days across poisoned plains, never letting them go. It is said the cubs remembered him. Not just those cubs, but every cub born after, through something older than memory. Liam stared at him. "That's impossible. Animals don't pass down memories like that." The elder smiled faintly, a tired smile. "Perhaps on your world. But the Linari are different. They remember what matters most. The scent, the voice, the feeling of safety. It lives in them like blood, the wheeze." Eight of his words settled in Liam's chest. "You're saying they think I'm him?" "Not think," the elder said softly. "No." Before Liam could respond, the station's intercom crackled to life. "Attention, incoming unidentified vessel approaching Docking Bay 3. All non-security personnel clear the area." The elder's expression hardened. "It is not a coincidence," he murmured. "The ones who killed their parents, they are here." Liam felt a cold spike run through him. He glanced at the cubs. All three were now on their feet, fur bristling, ears flat. They were staring toward the door as if they could already smell the threat. "What do they want?" Liam asked. The elder's eyes darkened. "To finish what they started." By the time Liam reached the docking bay observation deck, the alien hunters had already disembarked. Tall, armored, their faces hidden behind curved masks, they moved with the quiet confidence of predators who feared nothing. The rescue station's guards kept their weapons ready, but even from behind the glass, Liam could feel the tension. Commander Taverin stood waiting at the front, his scaled arms folded. "State your business," he demanded. The lead hunter tilted his head. His voice, when it came, was deep and cold. "We have come for what belongs to us." Liam's hands clenched into fists. He didn't need to be told what they meant. Hours later, back in the habitat wing, the atmosphere was tense. Taverin had ordered increased security. The cubs refused to rest. They paced the enclosure, glancing at the door as if they expected danger to walk through at any moment. Liam leaned against the glass. "I'm not letting them take you," he murmured. The smallest cub pressed its paw against the glass, the same way it had the first time they met. The gesture sent a strange ache through him. It wasn't just trust. It was a plea. Behind him, the elder's voice came again, softer now. Do you understand, human? This is no accident. The Lenari cubs trust you because your kind saved. Tavarin shot him a glare. Human, this is not your... It's exactly my business, Liam cut in. They came to me when they were scared. They trust me, and I'm not letting you take them. A tense silence followed. The hunters didn't respond in words. Instead, the lead one took a single step toward him, the movement slow and deliberate. Inside the habitat, the smallest cub let out a sharp, urgent chirp. The same sound it had made when it first called him. Liam glanced back, and in that moment something happened that made even Tavarin's eyes widen. The cubs moved in unison, pressing their paws against the glass. They weren't just watching. They were waiting. For him. The hunters struck fast. One moved toward the habitat controls while another lunged forward, hand outstretched. Liam swung the fusion spanner in a tight arc, the heavy tool connecting with a sharp metallic crack against the hunter's arm. Sparks flew. The alien stumbled back with a snarl. The guards reacted then, blaster fire lighting up the corridor. The hunters moved like shadows, dodging and returning fire with brutal precision. In the chaos, one of them managed to slice through the first layer of the habitat's locking mechanism. The cubs hissed, their tails lashing wildly. Liam! Harrow's voice shouted from the far end of the hall. The scientist skidded around the corner, clutching a portable console. Override code! You can lock them out for good! Liam's heart pounded. If he activated a full lockdown, the cubs would be safe, for now. But it would also seal the habitat in a way that kept him out too. And he didn't want to be separated from them, not with these hunters still loose. The lead hunter's voice cut through the alarms. They will find no safety without us finishing this. Yeah, Liam said, gripping the spanner tighter. Guess we'll see. He slammed the spanner into the console near the hatch, the impact jolting the panel loose. Sparks showered the floor. Then he reached in and twisted two cables together. The habitat door slid open, not to let the hunters in, but to let him inside. The cubs rushed to him immediately, pressing against his legs, fur warm and trembling. From outside the open door, Tavarin roared, Human, you're insane. Maybe, Liam said, but I'm not leaving them. The hunters froze at the threshold, as if something unseen held them back. The cubs stood in front of Liam now, their teeth bared, bodies low, their growls harmonizing in a sound that seemed to vibrate through the air. It wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. The hunters took a single step back, and Liam knew then, whatever history tied humans to these creatures, it was enough to make their enemies hesitate. Blood and bond. The first explosion hit less than an hour later. It shook the entire rescue station, rattling the glass of the habitat and throwing Liam off balance. The lights flickered, alarms screamed, and the emergency klaxon switched from red to an urgent white, the signal for full breach. The cubs reacted instantly, pressing against him, fur bristling, their golden eyes darting toward the ceiling as if they could track the vibrations through the metal. Docking bay shields have failed, a voice shouted over the intercom. Multiple hostile boarding parties inbound. Liam didn't need anyone to tell him who the hostiles were. The hunters hadn't come for negotiations, they'd come for war. He turned to Harrow, who was already at the habitat console. Seal the outer corridors, Liam barked. I can't. Harrow's voice was tight with panic. Power relays are down. The hunters took out the grid. Another explosion ripped through the deck beneath them, sending a tremor up Liam's legs. Somewhere distant, the sharp staccato of blaster fire echoed through the station's steel ribs. The cubs huddled closer, their bodies warm against his legs, trembling but unyielding. Liam crouched down, looking them in the eyes. All right, little ones, he murmured, we're getting out of here together. The corridors were chaos. Smoke drifted through the air, lit by flashing alarms. Aliens of every shape and size ran in both directions, medics carrying wounded, engineers dragging emergency supplies, guards shouting orders that no one seemed to hear. Liam kept moving, the cubs padding beside him like shadows. It was strange. No matter how much noise or movement there was, they never strayed more than a step away from him. Even in the chaos, they watched him constantly, as if waiting for his next move. They reached across corridor and froze. A hunter stood there blocking the way. His armor was scarred from battle, his mask cracked to reveal a glimpse of dark, scaled skin beneath. He held a blade-like weapon that hummed faintly with power. The cubs let out a low, unified growl, their tails lashing in perfect sync. The hunter tilted his head, studying them, and then his gaze shifted to Liam. "The Protector," he said in a deep, rasping voice. "So it is true." Liam gripped his fusion spanner tighter. "If you're looking for a fight, you found it." The hunter lunged. Liam moved on instinct, swinging the spanner in a wide arc. The blow glanced off the hunter's shoulder, but it was enough to throw him off balance. The cubs seized the moment, darting in low, their sharp little teeth sinking into the joints of the hunter's armor. He roared, trying to shake them off, but they were fast. One leapt away before he could grab it. Another darted behind his legs, tripping him. The third went for his weapon arm, forcing him to drop the blade with a clang. Liam kicked it away, then slammed the spanner into the side of the hunter's mask. The crack widened, and the alien collapsed with a guttural snarl. Breathing hard, Liam crouched beside the cubs, checking them quickly. "You okay?" They chirped, Dee softly, pressing against him. And that's when he realized they hadn't just attacked because they were wild. They had fought with him, moved like a team, trusted him to lead. They pushed deeper into the station, aiming for the auxiliary docking bay where Liam knew an escape shuttle might still be intact. But the closer they got, the more the corridors twisted into smoke-filled choke points. Halfway there, the station shuddered again. A loud tearing sound echoed from somewhere above, followed by a rush of cold air. A hull breach. Liam grabbed the nearest wall grip, pulling the cubs close so the sudden suction didn't drag them down the corridor. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing them off from the breach, but it also cut off their direct path to the shuttle. They were trapped between the hunters and a sealed corridor. Harrow's voice crackled through Liam's comm. "The docking bay is swarming with them. You won't make it through." "Then tell me where I can go," Liam shouted. There was a pause, then, "Maintenance shafts. Old ones. They don't show on the hunter's scans." It wasn't much of a plan, but it was all they had. The shafts were narrow, dark, and lined with cold metal pipes that rattled underfoot. Liam had to crawl in some sections, the cubs slipping easily through ahead of him. It was in those tunnels, away from the chaos, that he noticed something strange. The cubs weren't just following him anymore, they were guiding him. One would pause at a junction, sniff the air, and then take a turn without hesitation. Another would make a low clicking sound if he got too close to a wrong passage. Somehow, they knew the way. When they finally emerged into the dim blue glow of an auxiliary control room, Liam realized why. A large viewport overlooked the planet below, and beyond it, distant and faint, was a formation of stars that seemed to catch the cubs' attention. They pressed against the glass, chirping softly, their eyes fixed on that patch of sky. It wasn't random, it was memory. Liam didn't know how, but they were leading him towards something far bigger than just survival. And in that moment, with the station shaking around them, he silently promised them one thing. He wasn't letting go. The truth beneath the stars. The auxiliary control room was quiet now, apart from the low hum of standby power and the faint, distant echoes of the battle still raging in the main corridors. Liam stood at the viewport, the cubs pressed close to his legs, all three staring out at the same patch of stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly beyond, a sea of cold light, yet the cubs looked at it with a strange, almost longing focus. He didn't understand, not fully, but deep in his chest he could feel something stir when he looked at those same stars, as if some forgotten part of him recognized the view. The door behind him hissed open. Liam spun, fusion spanner raised, only to see Harrow step inside, his blue skin pale under the room's dim light. Behind him came the elder, leaning heavily on his staff. "They are still here," Harrow said quietly, nodding toward the cubs. "Even after the breach." The elder's clouded eyes moved to Liam. "And they are still with you." Liam frowned. You told me before there was history, that humans saved their kind once. Yes, the elder said, voice low. And the Linari remember, not in the way your people pass down words in books, but in blood, in instincts older than language. They know the scent, the voice, the rhythm of a heartbeat that once stood between them and death. Liam shook his head slowly. You can't be saying they remember me. I wasn't there. No, the elder agreed, but your blood was. From his satchel, he withdrew a small, ancient-looking device. Harrow took it and activated the holographic scanner. A beam of pale light swept over Liam's arm, then over the smallest cub, who chirped softly at the touch. When the readings appeared, Harrow's eyes widened. It's real, he whispered. A direct genetic link. Liam stared at him. What does that mean? It means, Harrow said slowly, you are descended from the human who carried the last Linari den to safety during the Varellan Wars. It's not a myth, it's fact. And these cubs, they are bound to you by more than chance. The elder's voice grew even softer, almost reverent. You are their protector, as he once was. Before Liam could process the weight of those words, the station's comm system crackled to life. Commander Tavaren's voice filled the room, sharp and commanding. Council session convening in Chamber 1. Subject, human custody of Linari cubs. Harrow swore under his breath. They're going to take them from you. They'll say it's for protection, the elder added grimly. But once the cubs are in the council's care, they will become specimens, tools for study, not living souls. The cubs seemed to understand the shift in mood. They pressed tighter against Liam's legs, letting out low, uneasy chirps. Liam's mind was a storm. Part of him wanted to fight the idea right there, to storm into the chamber and tell the council they had no right. But another part of him, the part that had spent his life fixing machines and solving problems quietly, knew it wouldn't be that simple. The council chamber was vast and cold, a semicircle of alien leaders seated high above the floor. The cubs stayed close as Liam stepped into the center, Harrow and the elder behind him. Tavaren stood at the far end, his scaled arms folded. Human Liam Cole, he began, you have no legal claim to these cubs. Their species is classified as endangered. Their care must be entrusted to the Galactic Preservation Council. And by care, Harrow said sharply, you mean containment. A murmur rippled through the chamber. They trust me, Liam said, his voice steady. You've all seen it. They've been afraid of everyone else, except me. If you take them, they'll shut down again. They'll stop eating. They'll stop living. They will adapt, Tavaran replied coldly. Liam glanced down at the cubs. They were watching him, waiting. It was the same way they had looked at him that first day, their tiny paws pressed to the glass. He knew in that moment there was no middle ground. He could walk away now, let the council take them, and they might survive, but they would not live, and somehow that would be worse than losing them. When the vote came, it was close, too close. By order of the Galactic Preservation Council, Tavaran announced, the Linari cubs will be placed under official protection. The smallest cub let out a sharp, piercing cry, a sound so full of desperation that the entire chamber fell silent. Liam didn't wait for permission. He scooped the cub into his arms, the other two pressing at his legs, and turned for the door. This isn't over, Tavaran called after him. Liam didn't look back. No, he said, voice low. It's just beginning. The choice that changed the galaxy. They came for him before the next station's sunrise. Liam was in his quarters, the cubs curled together on the bunk beside him, when the door slid open without warning. 4 armored security officers stepped inside, their weapons set to stun. At their head stood Commander Tavaran. The council has spoken, Tavaran said, his voice low but iron. The cubs leave with us now. The smallest cub woke first, lifting its head, ears flat. A soft, uneasy chirp escaped its throat. The other two stirred, pressing closer to Liam. You take them, Liam said evenly, and you break something you'll never be able to fix. They will be safe, Tavaran replied. They'll be alone, Liam shot back. That's not the same thing. For a moment, Tavarin said nothing. His gaze flicked to the cubs, then back to Liam. Step aside, human. But Liam didn't move. His heart was pounding, but there was no hesitation in his voice. No. The tension in the room snapped. One of the officers stepped forward, but before he could take another step, a sharp, warning growl filled the air. All three cubs were on their feet now, standing between Liam and the guards, their fur bristling, teeth bared. And then it happened. The thing that would be talked about in every corner of the galaxy for years. The cubs moved as one, their bodies low, tails lashing, their growls rising in a strange, rhythmic pattern. The sound resonated in the air, deep and ancient, carrying something that made the guards falter. Even Tavarin froze, his scaled hands curling at his sides. The elder had once told Liam that the Lenari carried their memories in blood. Now he understood. The sound was a call, not just to protect, but to claim. They weren't defending a caretaker. They were defending their human. Within minutes, the station was alive with noise. Word spread fast. The Lenari cubs had chosen, and in their culture, once a cub made that choice, no law, not even the councils, could override it without sparking a blood feud that would stretch across systems. Tavarin knew it too. Liam saw it in the tightness of his jaw, the way his gaze flicked to the small cluster of onlookers gathering in the hallway outside. The council might have voted one way, but now, in the court of public opinion, they were losing badly. This will not protect them forever, Tavarin said at last. Maybe not, Liam admitted. But for now, they stay with me. Tavarin's tail lashed once, but he turned and left, the guards following without another word. The elder found Liam hours later in the observation deck, the cubs sprawled sleepily around his boots. The battle damage to the station had been patched for now, but the air still carried the faint scent of scorched metal and smoke. You made your choice, the elder said, leaning on his staff. I didn't have one, Liam replied. Not really. The elder gave a slow nod. And yet, few would have taken the harder path. Liam looked down at the cubs. I think they chose for me a long time ago. I just didn't realize it. The elder's cloudy eyes softened. Then remember this. The bond between a Lenari and their chosen is not a small thing. You are their shield, their family, and in time their history. They will carry you in their blood long after you are gone. When the human transport ship departed the station the next day, 3 small Lenari cubs walked at Liam's side, tails wrapped loosely around his legs. The docking bay was crowded with curious onlookers, some watching in awe, others in confusion, but no one tried to stop them. News of what had happened was already spreading far beyond the station. Stories grew in the telling. The cubs who feared everyone except the human. The man whose blood carried an ancient promise. The protector reborn. In time, Liam knew the galaxy would move on to other stories, other wonders. But somewhere in every Lenari den there would be cubs who pressed their paws to the glass when a human passed by, because they remembered.